Om Namo Narayanaye. Om Namo Narayanaye.
Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So we're continuing on with our book, The Greatness of Sharanagati, and we're on chapter 3. So chapter 3, Acharya's systematization of Sharanagati. So systemizing Sharanagati. Previously, we read about how Sharanagati was found in many places, even in the Upanishads as Nyasa Vidya. So now we're going to go into how the different Acharyas have systematized the process of Sharanagati or surrender to the Lord. The Alvars showed the way to the Acharyas who streamlined the teachers and taught the doctrine of Sharanagati or surrender in detail. The Acharyas were inspired by Alvars, who were the seers and lovers of God. There is no distinction between Alvars and Acharyas. The former were only inspired men. The latter had their inspirations modified by learning and scholarship. While describing the Acharya's contribution to Sharanagati, Professor P.N. Srinivasacharya says, Ramanuja, at the close of his career, entrusted the spiritual care to the Vishishta Dvaita community or of the Vishishta Dvaita community to the 74 Simhasanadipatis. So Simhasanadipatis refers to persons who were entrusted by Ramanuja to take care of the community at that time. 74 persons to be teachers to continue to teach Sharanagati. Sriman Nathamuni, Yamunacharya, Ramanuja, Vedanta Deshika, Pilalokacharya, and Manavala Mamuni are the stalwarts in the Acharya Parampara. So there are many Acharyas, and he's mentioned some of the major Acharyas here. Nathamuni, Yamunacharya, before Ramanuja, then Vedanta Deshika, Pilalokacharya, after Ramanuja, and further on even Manavala Mamuni. Sriman Nathamunigal and Sri Vaishnavism. So now we're going to hear about some of them. The grandson of Ishwara Bhatta in Viranarayanapuram, Katumana Koil means temple in Tamil. So Viranarayanapuram is the Sanskrit name for this place. And Katumanar Koil is the Tamil name. Sriman Nathamunigal, or Nathamuni, was born in 823 AD. It was Sriman Nathamuni who consolidated the 4,000 hymns of the Alvars and divided them into 4 parts: Mudalayiram, Periya Tirumoli, Yarpa, and Tiruvaimoli. Okay, so the Mudalayiram is the first 1,000, and then we have Periya Tirumoli, which is also 1,000, then Yarpa, which is a collection of another 1,000, and the last 1,000, Tiruvaimoli, which is by Namalvar. He approximately 1,000, each one of these. So he taught his 2 nephews, Melai Agata Alvar and Melai and Kilai Agata Alvar. So Mel and Keel. Okay, so Mel actually means in Tamil. So Mel means west and Keel means east. So west and east. It also means Mel means up and Keel means down. Okay, in Tamil. So these may not be exactly their real names, but one was called Mel Agatalwar, and another one was called Keel Agatalwar. How to sing these hymns. So Nathamuni taught his 2 nephews how to sing these hymns. He put these hymns to music, the Tamil Prabandhas of the Alvars. He received them from, it'll be mentioned here, he received them from maybe it'll be mentioned, not from Namalwar, as most of them were lost to posterity, but he received them in a meditation or in what's called yoga dasai, in a type of trance from the previous Acharya or Alwar, Nam Alwar, head of the Alwar. So how to sing these hymns, and ordered them to propagate and perpetuate them by visiting the holy shrines and singing them before the deities. So this is what Nathamuni did. First of all, he rescued the 4,000 hymns of the Alwars in Tamil, and then he set them to music, and then he introduced them to be sung in the different temples. And he did that through his two nephews. The other two important disciples of Nathamuni are Uyakonda and Kurugai Kavalapan. Right. He taught all the rahasyas, all the secret esoteric doctrines, and prabandhams, the Tamil 4,000 Tamil songs of the Alwars, to these two disciples. He asked his two disciples to teach these works to his would-be grandson, Yamunacharya, who would enrich the Vaishnavism in later years. Okay, so Nathamuni's grandson was Yamunacharya, and he entrusted his two of his disciples with bringing these teachings to his grandson. His grandson, Yamunacharya, the story of Yamunacharya's life you can read. If anybody needs to read it, they can get in touch with me, or you can look it up on the internet. But at a certain point, he was in the Gurukula, and he went and he performed very well in the debate, and he won over the debate, and he got half of the king's kingdom as a reward for the debate. So he became like a prince. So for some years, he was acting like a prince, and he was sort of in material life and not worrying about spiritual life. But these two disciples of Nathamuni helped to bring him back to spiritual life. So Sriman Nathamunigal wrote two important treatises, Sanskrit treatises, Nyaya Tattva and Yoga Rahasya, which however are not available now. Okay, so we've heard of these two, Nyaya Tattva and Yoga Rahasya. The Krishna Yoga Mandiram, which is an organization which teaches yoga and also teaches some Vedic mantras even to foreigners, right? It has printed a book called Yoga Rahasya, and they say that is also the original Yoga Rahasya of Nathamuni, but that is doubted by many people. Okay, so these two, Nyaya Tattva and Yoga Rahasya. So Yoga Rahasya means the secret of yoga, and Nyaya Tattva would mean the truth about the logic, truth of logic or something. So they're not available to us now. These two works very much influenced the later acharyas like Yamuna, Ramanuja, and in shaping the philosophy of Vishishta-Dvaita. It is said that Sriman Nathamuni's service was to spread the Divya Prabandham, the 4,000 Tamil hymns, may be compared to what Veda Vyasa or Vyasadeva did for the understanding and population of the Vedas, right? So just as Veda Vyas got all the Vedic Shrutis together, all the Sanskrit Vedas together, and he divided them up into four, Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva. So similarly, Nathamuni got all the 4,000 songs of the Alwars in Tamil together and cut them up into four parts, which were approximately 1,000 each, and started to spread them. In fact, the Sri Vaishnavas, they consider the Alwar's prayers to be on a par with the Vedas. So they call them the Dravida Vedas, South Indian Vedas, or the Tamil Vedas, right? Because the original Vedas are in Sanskrit, so these are in Tamil. This luminary is remembered with gratitude by all the Sri Vaishnavas because, but for his discovery and propagation of the Tamil hymns of the Alwars, they would not have seen the light of day. Okay, so that's what I was saying. He got them in a trance or in meditation from Namalwar. Thus, Nathamuni's works influenced later acharyas like Uyakonda, Rama Mishra, Yamunacharya, Ramanuja, and others. Through these acharyas, the genesis and the birth and growth of Sharanagati is flourished. So Yamunacharya and Sharanagati. So that was about Nathamuni. Now we're going to talk about Yamunacharya, his grandson. So there were two acharyas in between. in between Natamuni and Yamunacharya. So now we're talking about Yamunacharya. So we're talking about the great Acharya, the greater Acharyas, but there are other ones in the Guru Parampara. The Guru Parampara means the succession of teachers. Parampara means one after another. Guru means teacher. So the succession of teachers starts from Sriman Nata Munigal. Before that, there were Alwas. Okay, succession of Acharyas starts from Nata Munigal. Yamunacharya, the son of the grandson of Nata Munigal, the earliest Acharya, whose works are available now. So the earliest works that we have are those of Yamunacharya, the grandson of Nata Muni. Both of them, of course, we have the Alwas original works, but after that, the Acharyas, the first Acharyas works that we actually have are by Yamunacharya. Both of them have followed the path of Sharanagati or surrender for obtaining Sriman Narayana. Yamuna wrote 8 works. So he wrote Siddhi Traya. So Siddhi Traya means perfection. Siddhi means perfection, Traya means 3. So there are 3 perfect books on different subjects. Okay, so one's called Ishvara, Ishvara Siddhi, Atma Siddhi, Ishvara Siddhi, and there's another one. Anyway, like that. So there are 3. It may be mentioned here like that. They're all called siddhis. So together they're called Siddhi Traya. Just like when Ramanuja came, he wrote Gadya Traya, 3 poems, right? They are Sharanagati Gadya, Sri Vaikuntha Gadya, and Sri Ranga Gadya. But together they're called Gadya Traya. So here we have Siddhi Traya. Agama Pramanya, which is a book about proving the authenticity and authoritativeness of the Pancharatra Agamas, right? Which are the books on how to worship the Lord in the temples, the process of icon worship in the temples. Gitarja Sangraha, which is a work in 32 verses, Anustupa slokas, giving us the essence of the meaning of the Bhagavad Gita. Mahapurusha Nirnaya. Okay, so to understand the Guru Parampara of the Sri Vaishnavas, it starts with Sriman Narayana, then Lakshmi Devi, then Vishvaksena, then Sadakopa Namalwar. Then after Namalwar, we have Nata Muni, right? And then we have 2 other acharyas, and then Yamunacharya. So that's as far as we've gone so far. So the Acharya's got only parampara from Lakshmi Devi. Everybody is in the parampara. Everyone following in this parampara is Lakshmi. Sri Devi is considered like the founder. Of course, all paramparas are founded by the Supreme Lord himself. But the first Acharya, the first person to hear from the Lord was Lakshmi Devi in Sri Vaikuntha. So his elaborate and detailed exposition of Prakriti Purusha, where were we up to? Mahapurusha Nirnaya. Mahapurusha means the great personality. That means Sriman Narayana. Nirnaya means an explanation about it. Stotra Ratna is the gem of stotras, which is a Sanskrit stotra of 65 verses, which also includes a lot on Sharanagati or surrender. And Chaturshloki. Chaturshloki is 4 slokas. So Stotra Ratna being a praise of the Lord, and Chaturshloki being a praise of Mahalakshmi. So he was moved by the teachings of Rama Mishra on Bhagavad Gita, particularly Charma Sloka. Right, so Rama Mishra was the person who helped to bring Yamunacharya from being a prince and bring him back to spiritual life. And so he explained to him about Bhagavad Gita, and especially explained to him about Sharanagati, which is mentioned in the Charma Sloka. Here, the Charma Sloka means the final order. There's a final order of Raha, of Krishna, and of Rama. So the one he's talking about here is chapter 18, verse 66 of the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadhamam Prityaja, Mamikam Sharamita, Aham Tva Sarva Pape Bhyomukshisha Mimasutaha. So he especially explained Bhagavad Gita and the Charma Sloka of Lord Krishna to Yamunacharya. His elaborate, Rama Mishra did. And so his elaborate and detailed exposition on Prakriti, this material universe, Purusha, the Supreme Lord. Purushottama means the the ultimate person. Bhakti, right, which means devotion, and Sharanagati, which means surrender or property, right, are very much exemplary in Gita Sangraha. If anyone is interested in going through Gita Sangraha, these 32 verses on the essence of the Gita, there's another playlist on this YouTube channel where you can go, and it says Gita Sangraha, and there are hundreds of lessons where we go through actually Dr. Tirunarayan goes through the 32 verses of Gita Sangraha with a commentary by Perivachan Pillai, who was a great Acharya, who made commentary on it in Manipavala, which is a mixture of Tamil and Sanskrit. So you can go and watch that. It's all in English and it's very easy to understand. Otherwise, the Gita Sangraha of Yamuna is usually printed along with the Gita Bhashya of Ramanuja. So if you get a copy of the Gita Bhashya, if anybody needs to get a link to download a copy of the commentary on the Bhagavad Gita by Ramanuja, let me know at the email at the end of this this video, and I will send you a link. You can freely download and read the commentary on the Bhagavad Gita by Ramanuja, and it will also contain the 32 slokas of 32 verses of Gita Sangraha, summarizing up the Gita by Yamunacharya. And as well as Vedanta Deshika's Gita Sara. Okay, so Vedanta Deshika also wrote a commentary, a sub-commentary on Ramanuja's Gita Bhashya, and he also wrote a commentary on even Yamunacharya's Gita Sangraha. So Vedanta Deshika's commentary is called Gita Sara. So according to Yamunacharya, the first 12 slokas of the 7th adhyaya, the 7th chapter, right, are devoted to the exposition of God's nature. So the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, right, Maya Shakta Manaparta Yogam Yunjan Manasra, it goes on, right? So this is, it explains about the exposition of God's nature. The first 7, it says the first 12 slokas, okay, first 12 verses. In other words, it is hidden from the common human beings by material nature called Prakriti or Maya. So the word Maya means illusion. Prakriti simply means this material world or matter, right? The universe. Comprising of 3 gunas. The word guna can mean qualities. It can also mean ropes. So these qualities tend to influence us when we're in the living beings, the jivatmans, the spiritual souls in the material bodies get influenced by these modes of nature, which are 3, sattva, rajas, and tamas. They are goodness, passion, and ignorance, right? So they have some different effects on people because of having the material body. And the spell of his maya or illusion can be dispelled by means of self-surrender to God. Right. So Yamuna, by showing the relationship of Nata Munigal, as his grandfather, performs Sharanagati, or surrender, in his Sanskrit Stotra Ratna, finds clear echoes, right? So the famous quotation where he seeks refuge with God comes to one's mind. You are my son, my father, my dear friend. You are the friend and guru of the world. I am yours, your servant, one of your retinue. I have sought refuge with you. Yours is now the burden of my welfare. So once we surrender to the Lord, the Lord takes the burden of looking after us and protecting us and taking us to safety and to moksha, taking away our fear even. So the original passage runs as follows. Pita tvam mata tvam daita tanayastvam priyasu hritu the twameva tvam mitram gururasi gatischas jagatam twadiyas twadbrityas tava parijanastwad gatiraham prapannaschaivam satyam aham vaivasmihi bharaha. Yamuna's Stotra Ratna consists of 65 slokas or verses in which he describes the beauties of the Lord, Paramapadanatha. Paramapadanatha means the Lord in Paramapada, or the supreme Vishnu's heaven of Vaikuntha. That Paramapada, the word Paramapada is coming from the Vedas, from the Rig Veda. Vishnu Yat Paramam Padam. So the Paramam Padam, or the Paramapadam, is Sri Vaikuntha. The Natha, or the Lord, the Paramapada Natha, the Lord of Paramapada, is Sriman Narayana. So he describes the beauty of the Lord in Sri Vaikuntha in 15 of those verses of Stotra Ratnam. It is said that Stotra Ratnam is the quintessence of the Guayamantra. Okay, so the Guayamantra, the word Guaya means two, mantra means a spell or a particular prayer, short prayer. So the mantra, manaha trayate iti mantraha, so the mantra helps to deliver or to control the mind. So we use the mantras to remind us of certain things, whatever the mantra is about. So this particular mantra is one of the very basic mantras of Sri Vaishnavism. It's called the Guayamantra because it has two sections to it. The first section is Shriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Prapadye. I take shelter, I will surrender at the 2 feet of Sriman Narayana. And the second one is Srimate Narayana Namaha. I offer my obeisances to Sriman Narayana. So this is one mantra called the Dvaya Mantra. So this Stotra Ratna gives us the essence of the meaning of the Dvaya Mantra. Now later on, different Acharyas wrote whole books about these mantras, about the Astakshara mantra Om Namo Narayanaya with 8 syllables, about the Dvaya Mantra, coming with these 2 sentences, and about the Krishna Charama Sloka, the important verse that Lord Krishna's final message and the quintessence of his message of the Bhagavad Gita. He describes the greatness of God as transcendent and surpassing the qualities of other deities. He writes his own complete surrender to God and entire dependence on his mercy. So he writes that he's completely surrendered to God and he's completely dependent upon God's mercy. In some of the slokas, the doctrine of Sharanagati or property is enlightened, and there are also many philosophical statements. He gives an expression of the wholehearted surrender or Sharanagati to the Lord, which indirectly gives the meaning of the Guayamantra. In other words, he describes how his mind, forsaking everything, is deeply attracted to the Lord and the sense of his supreme helplessness and absolute abnegation, right? Abnegation means giving up all of the hope, giving up everything else, and simply seeking the lotus feet or the surrender to the Supreme Lord. The original sloka runs like this: Nadama nishtosmi na chatma vedi na bhaktimam twatcharana vinde. This is very famous one. Akinchana ananya gatisaranya tvatpadamulam sharanam prapadye. Tvatpadamulam means I surrender at the base of your feet, at your padamulam. From the 23rd stanza or verse to the 27th stanza, the notion of Sharanagati is elaborated. In the 28th stanza, Yamunacharya describes services or kainkarya to the Lord. Kainkarya is a Sanskrit word for service. Another word is seva. Kainkarya means we serve the Lord. Right, so from verses 36 to 40, he's explained the importance of Srimate and Narayana. So Srimate and Narayana, right? These are 2 words that come in twice in the Charma Sloka, right? Sriman Narayana Charno, Sriman Narayana, and Srimate Narayana, like that. So Shri or Shriman or Srimate, Srimati, it represents Mahalakshmi, the consort of the Supreme Lord, the mediator between the individual souls and the Supreme Lord. And Narayana, of course, tells us about is the name of the Supreme Lord. So and also elaborated the significance of the syllable Namaha. So Srimate Narayanaya Namaha is occurring in the second sentence of the Dvaya. That's the second sentence of the Dvaya mantra. He showed that Sharanagati is the only means for attaining the highest goal in the 60th and 62nd verses. So we have to go to this, we have to go to this Stotra Ratna, and we have to look at the different verses, and we have to understand that they all have great meaning. And he's just pointing out some of the meanings for certain verses. So in a very quick way. But if you want to go deeper into it, please go and see the playlist for the complete complete lessons and complete deep understanding of the Stotra Ratna. It is said, because I have there's a playlist not only for Gita to Sangraha but also for Stotra Ratna on this YouTube channel. So it is said that in Guru Parampara Pravavam, which is a book about the different acharyas in the Guru Parampara, that it was during the sojourn or the journey at Kanchipuram, or to Kanchipuram, that Yamunacharya, accompanied by Kanchipurna, right, who was a great devotee who used to serve the Lord in Kanchipuram, Devaraj Perumal or Varadaraj Perumal, in the big temple in Kanchipuram. So Yamunacharya and then one of his disciples called Kanchipurna, who again was one of the Shiksha gurus of Ramanuja later on, spotted by mere piercing look, young Ramanuja amidst the pupils of Yadava Prakash at the holy shrine of Lord Varadaraja. So Yadava Prakash is the name of the original Gurukul teacher, the original teacher of Ramanuja when he went to school. Of course, Ramanuja later left that school and left that teacher because he didn't agree totally with that person's philosophy. Later on, that person was converted to Ramanuja's philosophy, Yadava Prakash. So, but what it's saying here is that Yamunacharya and Kanchipurna, one of his disciples, saw Ramanuja, but they didn't approach him at that time. Yamuna wanted to give him initiation and to make him into, to bring him to be the head of the Vaishnavas in Sri Rangam, but he didn't want to disturb the relationship that he had. He was already in a Gurukula, learning from a guru, from a teacher. So he thought, if he gives up this teacher and if he gives up this guy's philosophy, then I'll approach him directly. But at least they saw each other. So not sure if Ramanuja saw Yamuna, but Yamuna definitely saw Ramanuja and saw the potential for him to be the leader of the Vaishnava Sampradaya. So at once, he relaxed the anxiety of mental revelation for having spotted the glittering Ramanuja, a scholar of his expectations, and did property at the feet of Lord Varadaraja for the betterment of Ramanuja. So what Yamunacharya did in Kanchipur, they went to the deity of Varadaraj Perumal and they prayed, let Ramanuja please come out from this school of Yadava Prakash, come out from under his influence, because he's a teacher of Beta Beta, a type of Beta Beta which was somewhat impersonal. And so let him come out of that and let him come to us and become a Sri Vaishnava. So they prayed for Ramanuja to do that. Yamunacharya blessed him as Mudalvan, the chief personage, to become his edifying force in the spread of the gospel of Sri Vaishnavism. It was Yamunacharya's wish that Ramanuja become the head of the Vaishnava society community. Unfortunately, Yamunacharya died before that could happen, and he had one of his disciples actually initiate Ramanuja. Ramanuja chose one of his disciples. Also, after praying to Lord Varadarajan and getting the answer which one he should accept as a guru. So now let's hear a little bit about Ramanuja and Sharanagati, or surrender. As the successor of Yamunacharya, Ramanuja occupies a very important place in Sri Vaishnava tradition. The works of Ramanuja are as follows: Vedartha Sangraha, which is a summary of Vedantic teachings in the Upanishads; Shrivashya, which is a commentary on the Vedanta Sutras, a big commentary, and a complete commentary on the Vedanta Sutras; Gita Bhasya, which is a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita; Vedanta Sara and Vedanta Deepa, which are also commentaries on the Vedanta Sutras like Shrivasya, but are one of them is contracted a little bit, is abbreviated, and the other one is very abbreviated and very much simplified. And Gajatraya, which I mentioned before, is the three prose works on surrender, Sharanagati Gajya, on Sri Vaikunta and also on Sri Rangam, describing those things. So they together are called Gajatraya, Sharanagati Gajya, Vaikunta Gajya, and Sri Ranga Gajya. And then also the Nityam. Nityam is a simple book, a very short, simple book of daily routines for his disciples, for Ramanuja's followers to follow, of how to worship the Lord and what to do every day. So this is called an Anikam. You know, there are many of these books which describe the details of the rituals and things to be done every day. In most of these works, the doctrine of Sharanagati is reflected directly or indirectly. Ramanuja, in his first work, Vedanta Sangraha, says, Tasya Atmanaha Kamakrita Vichitra Gunamaya Prakriti Samsara Rupat Samsara Moksho Bhagavat Prapti Mantra, I think this is Mantrena, it's written here as Mantarena, Na Upapadhyate iti. So, which means that the release of the soul from samsara, from the bondage of this wheel of birth and death, old age and disease, in this material world, in the form of its natural conjunction with Prakriti, when the soul is in a material body, is in contact with matter, and is being influenced by being covered over by the gunas that we talked about, the goodness, passion, and ignorance, sattva, rajas, and tamas, right? With its due karma. So karma means not just the acts that the soul is doing, but the reactions to the different acts, good and bad, either pious or sinful, that the soul is performing, and consists in various gunas or qualities, is impossible without resorting to the Lord, right? So even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Mama Maya Duradya. My Duradya means very difficult. My illusion, the illusion in this material world that comes about by being in this material world and being in a material body, or being in contact with matter and the modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. This is very illusion. This is giving illusion to the living being, to the individual souls. And it's very difficult for the individual soul to get beyond that, or to reach beyond that. So it's practically impossible. So what Ramanuja is saying here is, he's saying without surrender, there's not a possibility to you have to resort to the Lord and seek the blessings of the Lord and surrender to the Lord, and that's the only way to overcome material nature, the prakriti and maya, illusion, or agyana, ignorance. In his text, Ramanuja shows an easy way of Sharanagati as an upaya, or means. The word upaya means means. A means to an end. The end is moksha. Only to as an upaya, or means, only to attain moksha, or liberation from this material ignorance. For the majority of ignorant and depressed people who could not follow the rigorous practice of bhakti yoga. So according to the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, bhakti yoga is actually very rigorous in its sadhana. If you perform bhakti yoga, there's so many things that you have to do in bhakti yoga. If you read in the Bhagavad Purana, it talks about Navada Bhakti. Also in the Ramayana, it mentions about Navada Bhakti in some places. There are these different things. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Parasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyamatma, Nivedam. So you have to hear and chant and remember about the Lord, and to worship his lotus feet, to offer puja to him, ritualistic worship, to surrender to him, to become a friend of him, to surrender everything to him. There's so many, become a servant of his. There's so many acts that you have to do. And if you do those things, it's actually quite rigorous, right? Difficult to perform, right? So the idea of Ramanuja, and the idea of even before Ramanuja, the idea of property, is that property should be an easy process. and a quick process, whereas because in the scriptures we read about bhakti, we read about other processes too, karma yoga and jnana yoga. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna first of all teaches karma yoga, then jnana yoga, then he teaches bhakti yoga. But all these processes involve a lot of effort, individual effort by the individual soul, and may take a long time. So the idea is that the easiest way and the quickest way to attain the goal is to resort to surrender to the Lord, because the Lord himself is the one who is going to arrange for you to achieve the goal, right? You don't have to do the sadhana, you don't have to do the work. The Lord is going to do all the work for you if you just surrender to him. He takes that as an excuse and he saves you. So he is very faithful to the scriptures, to the Shastras. In his Sri Bhashya and his Gita Bhashya, he expresses his thoughts freely in an uninhibited way or manner. The doctrine of Sharanagati or surrender finds a little place in Sri Bhashya where, as in the Gita Bhashya Bhakti, as well as Sharanagati, are dealt with in an elaborate manner. Right. So naturally, the Bhagavad Gita talks about karma, talks about jnana, talks about bhakti yoga, talks about different yogas. So naturally, even Ramanuja, when he translates the Gita and gives his commentary, he talks about those things also. But he also talks about Sharanagati or surrender as a separate means, which is easier and quicker. And similarly, in the Sri Bhashya, there's a small part that he's because Sri Bhashya is about Vedanta. So, as we said before, in the Upanishads and the Vedanta, there are 32 Upanishadic vidyas. There are 32 methods of attaining the supreme, or attaining moksha, right, which are mentioned in the Upanishads. Only one of them is surrender to the Lord. So there are others like Gayatri Vidya, chanting the Gayatri, meditating on certain things, doing this and that. So this Nyasa Vidya, which is one of the 32 Upanishadic vidyas or methods or sadhanas or methods or means of attaining moksha, right? That's also must be dealt with in Sri Bhashya because it comes in the Upanishads, and the Bhashyas on the Vedanta Sutras explain the philosophy of the Upanishads. So that is why he described in his Gita Bhashya as Bhakti Yoga Mavantara Yamasa. There is a direct reference to the word Sharanagati by Ramanuja in his Sri Bhashya. The text reads in the following way. So, sa kalvantaryami itayopasanasyapi nirvartakaha vasikaryopasanan nivriti upayakas ta bhutaha Parama praptyashesheya, should be maybe ashesha, sa eva tasya cha vasikarnam touch Sharanagatir eva. Okay. So Sharanagati is mentioned here. Sharanagati eva. Also Sharanagati. So the above passage means he or God, the Supreme Person, Sriman Narayana, being the inner controller, is the accomplisher of the fruit of the upasana, right? As well only. He is the supreme object and the means for perfecting the upasana. Upasana means worship, for attracting him. To attract him to you is only taking refuge in him. So simply by taking refuge in him, everything else follows from that. Ramanuja's Gadya Traya, or his three prose works, Sharanagati Gadya, Vaikuntha Gadya, and Sri Ranga Gadya, are in prose, he says prosody form. He means prose form. Sharanagati Gadya is the first of the three Gadyas of Ramanuja. It is in the form of a conversation between him, Lord Ranganatha, and Lord Ranganatha's divine consort, Sri Lakshmi Devi. So, and is a lively exposition of the doctrine of Sharanagati. In Sri Rangam, the center for Sri Vaishnava spiritual activities, which is more or less the central place for Sri Vaishnavism, the birthplace of Sri Vaishnavism, and we could say like the Vatican of Sri Vaishnavism. On Panguni Uttaram, so Panguni is a 1 month of the year. It's a Tamil month. Tamils have solar months, right? But they also understand the lunar months too. We know that in India they have a month called Palguni in North India, right? Or even in South India in different places that follow the lunar calendar. So Panguni is approximately the same as Palguni. And Uttaram means that there's a star. Uttaram is the Tamil word for a particular star, Uttara, right? And so on that particular day, in a Tamil month, Lord Ranganatha sat in his court with Sri Lakshmi on the throne. What actually happens is that Lord Ranganatha's Utsava Murti goes on a journey across the river Kaveri to another temple, and then comes back, and he enters into the shrine of Mahalakshmi, because in Sri Rangam temple, Ranganayaki, the consort of the Lord Mahalakshmi, has her own shrine. So he enters into that shrine and he sits with her one day a year on this Panguni occasion. And everybody comes there and chants the Sharanagati Gajja of Ramanuja, the conversation about surrender in front of the two deities, the Lord Ranganatha and Goddess Sri Devi. So it's very important to have them both together when we do Sharanagati or surrender. If we go to God, who's like our Father alone, he may see our sins and he may want to punish us. But if we go to God, who's our Father, with Sri Devi, who's our mother, right? When the mother is there, then the father will look more. She will implore the father to be more kind to the children, to overlook their sins and their bad behavior. So that's a very important aspect of Sharanagati, and Sri Devi being a mediator between the souls and God in the form of our Father. So like that. In Sharanagati Gajja itself, Ramanuja calls Lakshmi in the very beginning. He talks to Lakshmi and he says, please, he surrenders to her first and says, please, you are my mother. You are the mother of the universe. Please recommend us to the Supreme Lord so that he will accept us. Yeah. So sits in court on the throne, and Ramanuja stood before them, surrendered himself and his all to the divine couple, and rendered the Sharanagati Gajja. So that's why they still do it today, because he did that. It is a practical treatise on Sharanagati or surrender. This Gajja begins with the prayer to Sri Lakshmi, or Sri Devi as she's known, right? In this prayer, Ramanuja seeks Sri Devi as his refuge and requests her to bless him for sincere Sharanagati or surrender at the feet of the Supreme Lord done by him, as deemed to be in proper setting and bear the desired fruit. Here, the idea is that she should intercede on his behalf and see that her beloved Pati, her husband or Lord Ranganatha, or Supreme Lord Sriman Narayana, accepts his Ramanuja's supplication and grants the desired fruit of being accepted into the Lord's service, into his service. So this Gadya, or prose work, is an elaborate treatise on the Guayamantra. Again, the Guayamantra has to do with Sharanagati or surrender, in which the eternal association of Lakshmi with the Lord Sriman Narayana is emphasized. Thus, Sharanagati Gajya focuses the concept of Sharanagati or surrender in detail. Ramanuja preached the doctrine of Sharanagati or surrender to his countless disciples. He himself rendered the Sharanagati or surrender in the form of a mantra like Sriman Narayana, Asaranya Sharanya Ananya Sharanaha, Tvatpada Padara Vinda Yugalam Sharanamaham Prapadye. Which basically is very similar to the Guayamantra, meaning I surrender to the 2 feet of Sriman Narayana. Thus, Sharanagati Gajja highlights the importance of Sharanagati, of souls, the surrender of the souls to Lakshmi, who is the Purushakara, he translates that as recommendatory authority, recommendatory authority, or we would say a mediator, right? If you want to put it in feminine in English, you would say mediatrix. So, but anyway, the mediator between the souls and the Supreme Lord, and the mother of all living beings. Ramanuja pleads with Lord Sri Ranganatha to allow him to serve him at all times in his Sri Ranga Gadya. He takes refuge under him only. The Vaikuntha Gadya is an exposition of the rapturous and transcendental beauty and bliss of Vaikuntha. So now after the next thing he's talking about is after the Sharanagati Gadya, now he's talking about the Vaikuntha Gadya, which talks about Vaikuntha. Ramanuja advises all the jivas to make absolute and unconditional self-surrender to Lord Narayana. Yamunacharya's Stotra Ratna and Gita Sangraha have influenced Ramanuja so much that their themes are embedded in his Vaikuntha Gadya and his Sharanagati Gadya. According to Ramanuja, Sharanagati Gadya should be reviewed not in terms of an individual or single work, but in the full spectrum of all his works. So it's applicable. We take the message of Sharanagati Gadya and apply it also to the other works of Ramanuja. Vedanta Deshika opines that the doctrine of bhakti is dealt with with full length in Sri Bhashya and Gita Bhashya, and the Gadyas themselves deal with Sharanagati or surrender. The Gadyas elaborate that Sharanagati should be complete and unconditional. Surrender should be complete and unconditional. It is not for perfecting other sadhanas, but for the attainment of the eternal service of the Lord. Hence, Sharanagati that is observed in this Gadyam is definitely for divine communion. Then what is the necessity of prayer through Parabhakti, Paragyana, or Paramabhakti? That's the question. The bhakti here is not for moksha, but for lifelong bhakti as a prapana. A prapana means a refugee, a person who seeks surrenders at the Supreme Lord. So the surrenderer, the surrendered soul, also performs acts of bhakti, but they are not meant for moksha. They're not meant to achieve a goal. They're simply meant as the service of the prapana, of the refugee, for the rest of his life, and even after his life into eternity. Hence, Sharanagati here is not for enrichment or fulfillment of bhakti, but for the attainment of moksha directly. This Gadya depicts Ata Banda Nivrite Eranantara Bhavinihi Paribhaktihi Parigyana Paramabhakti Pratyate. While describing the Charma Sloka from Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna's final order, in Gita Bhashya, Ramanuja expounds Sharanagati and its relationship to Bhakti Yoga. The same idea is echoed by him in his Vedartha Sangraha, which was his book on the essence of the Upanishadic doctrines. Ramanuja observes that earnest and single-minded bhakti culminates in the most vivid and immediate vision of God, and such an intense bhakti or devotion is not possible without practicing Sharanagati or surrender. He says, Paramapurusha, Sharanaravinda, Sharanagati, Janita, Tad Abhimukyasya, Sadacharya, Upadesha, Upa Brimhita, Shastradigate, Tat Vayatatnya, Avabodha, Paramapurusha Charanavinda Yugalansya, Lugananstat, Neyasa, Tat Bhakti Karita, which means that all the massive evil karmas or sinful reactions will melt away by amassing unequal good karmas. Say, when he has become wholly dedicated to God as a result of his taking refuge at his lotus feet, his lotus-like feet, when he throws himself altogether at the lotus feet of the Supreme Person. Thus, Ramanuja assigns a very special status to Sharanagati or surrender in his Gadya Triyas, in his three Gadyas. Vedanta Deshika calls these Gadyas as Saraswatvam, Tam and Sasvatam. It is also stated that all the other works of Ramanuja, though great, are only preparations for studying the great Sharanagati Gadya. It exposes the three supreme rahasyas, namely Tirumantra, the Astakshara 8-syllable mantra, the Guayamantra, the mantra in 2 parts, and the Charma Sloka from Bhagavad Gita 1866, the final message of Lord Krishna. These are well explained in chapter 4, page 73 of this book. So we'll get there. This Gadya is considered to be the supreme exposition of Ramanuja by all sections of his disciples. Vaikuntha Gadya proclaims that constant chanting of Dvaya mantra by the aspirant would definitely help to attain supreme reality. Ramanuja vows in this Gadya that Sharanagati, or surrender at the Lord's feet, is direct sadhana to attain supreme bliss. Thus Ramanuja exhorts all in this Gadya to take refuge with God to be saved. He says, Paramapurusham Bhagavantam Narayanam Swamitvena Kritvena Suhritvena Gurtvena Cha Parigraha Srimat Charanara Vindayugalam Ananyatna Sanjeevanena Tadgata Sarvabhavena Sarena Manu Vrajet. Hence, Ramanuja has firmly stated in his Vaikuntha Gadya that Sharanagati at the feet of the Lord is the direct means for attainment of supreme bliss of servitude of the Lord. Again, he repeats that Ekantika Tyantika Tat Padambuja Dvaya Paricharyaika Manorataha. It means for the attainment of the Supreme, there is no other way than to surrender at his feet. This is again expressed in Vaikuntha Gadya as follows. Tat praptaye cha tat padam bhujadvaya prapat chanyan name kalpakoti sahasrenapi sadhana mastiti manvanaha. It says that Sharanagati is the direct means to the goal of God realization. Thus, according to Ramanuja, even if an aspirant who is inefficient in performing karma yoga, jnana yoga, and other upasanas, other methods, other upayas, other means of attaining moksha or liberation, and who does not possess true knowledge of reality, can attain release from bondage and be blessed with the infinite bliss of divine communion and service out of mercy of the Lord through doing Sharanagati sadhana, or actually just surrendering to the Lord. Next to Ramanuja, several acharyas like Kurudalwan, or otherwise known as Kuresha in Sanskrit, Embar, otherwise known as Govinda in Sanskrit, Bhatta, otherwise known as Parashara Bhatta, Pilan, Nanjir, Nampillai, Perivachan Pillai, and so on, enriched Sharanagati in their texts. So we talked about Nathamuni, we talked about Yamunacharya, we talked about their works, we talked about Sharanagati or surrender in their works, and we also talked about Ramanuja and surrender in his works. Next, we'll be talking about other acharyas like Pilalokacharya, Vedanta Deshika, Manavala Mamuni, and surrender in their works.
Looking at the methodology of the parampara or the Purva acharyas and the linkage of these acharyas to divine personalities such as Mahalakshmi and others. And then you went on to speak about the different scriptures and things, but of particular interest, especially as you would have noted, would have been the Stotra Ratna But you said the Stotra Ratna, that is in one of the lectures that would have been on the link.
There's a playlist, and you can go and you can go through the audio. Dr. Tirunarayan will explain Stotra Ratna, all the 65 verses, with the commentary of Perivachan Pillai. So he explains the verses, and he also gives a commentary by a great Acharya. Now, if you want to look at this is the Sri Vaishnava Guru Parampara. Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So it starts up the top with Lord Ranganatha, and then Sri Devi, Vishwaksena, Namalwar. Today is the appearance day of Namalwar, by the way.
Oh, okay.
And then we have Sri Nathamuni, and then we have Pundarikaksha, right, who is called Uyakonda in Tamil, right? Then we have Rama Mishra. Remember I was talking about Rama Mishra saved Yamunacharya and brought him out from being a prince and back to spiritual life. So we have Nathamuni so we have the Alwars are here.
Yeah,
the first three are in Sri Vaikuntham. Right, so Srimanarayana, Mahalakshmi, and Vishwaksena. Now, they consider that Namalwar is considered to be an incarnation of Vishwaksena. But anyway, Namalwar is the head of the Alwars. You don't see the other Alwars here, but anyway, Namalwar is there, and he gave the Divya Pranam to Nathamuni. Nathamuni, this is where the first Acharya. Nathamuni is considered the first Acharya. Then Pundarikaksha.
Ramanuja Acharya.
Yeah, called as Uyakonda, and Rama Mishra also called as Malakal Nambi, right, in Tamil. So each one of them has a Sanskrit name and a Tamil name. And then Yamunacharya, right, also called Alavanda. Ramanuja called Embermanar, sorry. And then Mahapurna means Yamunacharya, because Yamuna didn't actually initiate Ramanuja, but Mahapurna, also called Perinambi, right? One of the disciples of Yamunacharya was the guru of Ramanuja. And you see here down the bottom Ramanuja with Kuradalwan and Dasarati, so Kuresh and Dasarati, his two main servants, disciples. And then it goes to Govinda. Govinda was also called Embar in Tamil. And he was a cousin of Ramanuja. He was also in the Gurukul of Yadava Prakash, but also came out. And then we have Parasara Bhatta, who was the son of this gentleman here with the Kuradalwan. One of the sons is Parasara Bhatta. The other son is called Vedavyasa Bhatta. So Parasara Bhatta, sometimes just called Bhatta. And then here we have Vedanti Jir, that's the Sanskrit. He's called Nanjir. Nanjir means our sannyasi. And then we have Kaliyavar Dasa or Nampillai, right? And then we have Sri Krishna, Pillai Lokacharya, and I'm sorry, Pillai Lokacharya is here. Pillai Lokacharya is here. And then we have Sri Shailesha Swami. And then we have Manavala Mahamuni. And Manavala Mahamuni preached in the Sri Rangam temple, and Lord Ranganatha himself acted like his disciple and learned from Manavala Mahamuni. So it becomes circular, because Lord Ranganatha becomes the disciple or the student of Manavala Mahamuni. Yeah.
What's the Sanskrit name? Is Malva?
In Sanskrit, it's called Varavara Muni. In Tamil, Manavala Mahamuni. Yeah. Vara, you can say Vara Muni.
Vara Muni.
In Sanskrit, yeah. Okay. And then in the middle of this Guru Parampara Hara, which is called Oranvali Guru Parampara. It's a Guru Parampara in the form of a garland, which is offered to the Lord. And see, the Lord's at the top, and Ramanuja is the Lord is the crest jewel, and then the nice big jewel at the bottom is Ramanuja. And
Ramanuja Acharya.
and here in the middle, it represents, there are three scenes that represent the three mantras which are given in Sri Vaishnava initiation. The Astakshara 8-syllable mantra Om Namo
Om Namo
Narayana,
Narayana.
which was spoken by Narayana Rishi to Nara Rishi in Badrikashram, and the Guayamantra spoken by the Supreme Lord to Mahalakshmi in Vaikuntha, and the Charma Sloka of Krishna, which of course was spoken by Lord Krishna to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra in the Gita.
Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo